This morning we are starting into our theme for November, which is broadly stated as the practice of liberating love through the practice of repair. How do we live our faith, which is centered in liberating love, in the practice of repair? And so this morning I want to start internal. Right? I love doing this journey of starting inside us and then the relationships between us and then the broader society over the next few weeks. So I want to talk a little bit about the need for repair within ourselves, particularly around emotion and how our emotions and our mind and our spirit and our body are all connected to each other. And most of the time, we're pretty good about repairing ourselves. But there are times where we can get a little bit stuck. How many of you have heard of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn? A number of you, maybe not everyone. So our bodies have these reactions when we feel a threat. Our nervous system activates and it changes the way that our brains are working and prepares us to respond to threat. When we're kids, that can come in a lot of different forms, right? It can come in the sense of, am I going to get punished for something? Or it can come in is this dog going to bite me? Or it can come in more intense, extreme ways of trauma and the lack of safety that may occur sometimes. Or it can happen when we're adults as well, when we feel like our sense of safety is threatened in any kind of way. I know for many of us, it may be happening this week around the election. It's not a physical threat, but it can feel like a threat to our sense of safety. And in many ways, it might be a threat to our sense of safety. So our nervous systems activate, which is good. There are ways in which we develop patterns and habits that protect us, that help us to find safety from the time we're children up through the time we're adults. Most of those are pretty good, but sometimes we get stuck. And when we get stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, our bodies, our minds, our emotions aren't regulated. We aren't able to find a place of calm and engage with one another in relationships that are loving and connective. Sometimes we aren't even able to talk about what it is that's wrong or what it is that's happened to us. And if it's a big event or if it's something that's continuing to happen over and over again that's activating that threat response, it can turn into PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it can stay with us and change the way our very bodies work, and change the way our brain patterns are. There's really cool research about this, and we're understanding more and more. Sometimes this trauma is even passed down from generation to generation in epigenetics, in family patterns, in all of those structures that exist, and we may not even know the story of the traumas that we are holding. So today we're going to do a back and forth. I'm going to talk about what trauma is and how we move through it, and Kai is going to graciously share their individual experience with us. So I'm going to invite them now to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. My name is Kai. I use they, them pronouns. I was born in 1982 to a family whose view of society, gender, and sexuality were stuck in time, somewhere between Leave It to Beaver and the Brady Bunch. I felt I had nowhere to turn to when my mind had other ideas. How would I begin to talk about being gay, genderqueer, the mold breaker that I turned out to be? Fundamentalist religious values spoon-fed to me easily became internalized homophobia, transphobia, and self-deprecation. Religious assault, emotional neglect of my true self, and extreme methods of behavior modification led to chronic depression and complex PTSD from before adolescence. I felt like a broken failure of a boy, a mindset that followed me well into adulthood.
How many of us are familiar with psychotherapy? Right? I'd say most of us, whether we've experienced it or not, or we've heard of talk therapy, right? Where we go in and the idea is we talk about our problems and we figure out who we are through talking. And sometimes we even build skills that we can use. And this can be profoundly impactful in understanding where our trauma is coming from and how to recognize when we're getting activated, when that fear response is coming up. But sometimes it doesn't go all the way. Sometimes it doesn't actually help us to repair when we're out of sync with our mind and our body and our spirit. As I said, the more we are learning about neuroscience, the more we're realizing how much trauma actually lives in the body as well. It lives in the way our networks are run in our brains, and it lives in our physicality. If you have a trauma and it involves your shoulder, you may be able to talk about it. You may be able to recognize when the events are being patterned again in your life and stop yourself from reacting, but you may still feel a pain in your shoulder, both a physical pain and a pain that is triggered by emotion. More and more, we are realizing that some of the ancient wisdoms around healing that are present in every religious tradition that call us to move, that call us to sing, to dance, to play and joy and worship with our bodies as a form of healing, are actually pretty scientifically sound as well. There's not enough research in this area, but it is more and more clear. I timed out. More and more clear that that connection between mind and body and emotions needs a physical component to heal. For many folks, yoga can be a very powerful practice in repair and in healing. For others, myself, I did Taekwondo when I was young. For some people, it's the breath work of learning to control our breathing and be present through the in and the out breath, particularly the out breath and pause. For some, it is dancing and music. For others, it is art and creating. I recently had an experience in Montgomery, Alabama, where we went to one of the museums that was commemorating the slavery trade. And there were some traumatic things that I was witnessing there. And it stuck in me. And I couldn't put it to words. I couldn't get those emotions out by talking. But that evening, we had a time of music. And I pulled out my art supplies and I moved my hands. And I didn't do anything in particular. It's swatches of colors, it's nothing fancy. But the moving my hand, the getting up and stretching my body, the singing together shifted my emotions in ways that allowed me to move through the flight experience that had been triggered in my body, to allow that to calm so that I could get to a place of processing with words. So often we can access a kind of repair through our bodily movements that we can't find in just talk alone. But the two together is really the most powerful thing. The tools we build in talking, in therapy, in learning from one another, combined with the ancient traditions of movement and dance and song, become a powerful set of tools for repair. And now we are adding in some fascinating science with things like neurofeedback and an experience that Kai had recently for those who are more stuck in that PTSD, whose brains are locked in a pattern that is not healthy, a pattern that doesn't allow you to access everything of all of who you are. There are new and interesting options, and I'll let Kai tell you a little bit more about their experience.
Oral medications, Prozac, Cymbalta, and Zoloft, in combination with psychotherapy, never got me very far. These meds brought me halfway out of my depression, but something else needed to reset my brain. I needed a third leg of support, like a footstool, to elevate my mood. TMS is an abbreviation for transcranial magnetic stimulation. It is a therapy reserved for patients with treatment-resistant depression. Only an estimated 30% of people given traditional or oral antidepressants have marked remission of symptoms. TMS is estimated to help 60% of those who receive it. Born in 1791, English chemist and experimental physicist Michael Faraday is credited for the discovery that an oscillating magnetic field can produce an electric current. His discovery paved the way for our modern use of electricity, from motors and generators to induction cooktops. TMS uses a strong, rapidly oscillating magnetic pulse to induce an electric current in the nerve cells of the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex of the brain. It is here in this very specific location that the brain regulates mood. In a way, TMS has the potential to jumpstart the brain's production of neurochemicals to alleviate symptoms of depression, post-traumatic stress, anxiety disorders, and even chronic pain. As a patient of TMS, the process feels a bit like being in a lab experiment. The initial visit involves putting on a white cotton beanie with a chin strap to hold it in place. The doctor uses a tape measure around the curvature of the scalp to mark a spot above the motor cortex that, when stimulated, will cause the right wrist to twitch. The lowest magnetic pulse strength to cause this twitching determines the strength that the field needs to be for effective TMS treatment. The scalp is again measured this distance from the left temple and that distance from the brow line to determine an exact spot where the electric coil needs to be placed to reach the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. It is similar to being fitted for a new suit, but the tailor measures your brain. A black dot inside a circle is clearly scribed on the beanie to indicate place coil here. When the patient is ready, the big machine is turned back on, and 10 pulses are fired in rapid succession, followed by a pause. This is repeated for a total duration of 10 minutes per treatment. Imagine being poked by a woodpecker with a TENS unit connected to its beak. There is a pulling sensation on the scalp as the nerves cause the skin to twitch. To be honest, the first half dozen sessions are not pleasant, during which the magnetic field is gradually increased to reach a therapeutic level. My regimen of TMS lasted 36 sessions, a 7-week commitment of medical rides in a stranger's car, a wait in the lobby with weekly paperwork to report progress, 10 minutes of brain zapping, and another ride home. For me, noticeable improvements occurred as soon as 1 week after the first session. At 3 weeks, I honestly had something of a spiritual experience, when a wave of relief flowed like a slow shiver down my body. This wave felt like the physical manifestation of messages such as, "I am really doing okay," and "Wow, life is friendly. I'm starting to enjoy this," and "Is this what life looks like without depression?" I could really savor the food I was eating. I was sleeping better. Bird song was more cheerful. The colors of spring and summer flowers became more vibrant. My cat's love became more palpable. It was easier to have a meaningful relationship with my husband. I became so much more mindful of everything happening around me. I felt a more active part of my reality rather than feeling life was just happening to me. To illustrate the change I felt, I have a couple of journal entries I'd like to share. This one's dated from April 29th of this year. A letter to my panic anxiety, which robbed me of joy, of freedom, made me feel inferior, unworthy of friends, and of love. I was sitting in the big chair having a TMS session. I was one tap on the phone from canceling my psychotherapy appointment, which I mistakenly thought was today and not tomorrow. I was having unmanageable anxiety levels. As the magnetic field was stimulating my brain, my thoughts returned to the anxiety of mornings just before heading out the door to catch the school bus. Mornings when I played sick numerous times. I just can't. There was no one back then to explain to myself or my mother what this was, extreme anxiety. There was no one to help me or point me toward help. Feeling hot and flushed, my stomach upset, a sore throat from tension in my neck. These were not symptoms of a cold or the flu. Why did my mother not see that I needed intervention? After all, she worried that I would drop out of school. Laying on the plastic, leather-covered beds in the school nurse's office, staring at the ceiling tiles or the clock, wishing to die, or at least wishing my mother would call the nurse to say she was picking me up, all the while knowing that the next day would come, where I would have missed the lessons and have extra homework to make up, not fully understanding the assignment anyway. Feeling like a loser, like no one cared, all alone, scared, abandoned. This was my junior high, and it was hell.
I got so into listening to Kai that I forgot to put on my mic. Where do you feel it in your body when you hear Kai talk about that anxiety? I feel a tightness. I feel my shoulders rising and my neck tensing up. And for me, I have learned that when I have that feeling, the thing I need to do is move. Is there anyone that might like to help me with a few yoga movements this morning and demonstrating? You want to come up? Come on up, Marie. We can have as many people as we want practice together. I'm going to read a little story that's part of a fantastic series that I read to my own child about regulating his emotions and learning how to be in touch with all of who he is. So this is called A Little Calm Spot, a story about yoga and feeling focused, written and illustrated by Diane Alber. Namaste. This word means you are saying hello or goodbye with your heart. It is used a lot in yoga. My name is Calm Spot, with the hands usually. I love yoga. What's yoga? Yoga is something you can do to help breathe slowly and feel focused, which helps your brain relax and makes you feel better. Sometimes Peaceful Spot forgets to do yoga, and that's where I come in to remind him. Calm Spot, I need some help here. Let's take a look at what happens when your emotions get too big and out of control. It can make you feel overwhelmed. Notice how those red and gray lines are very tangled and jumbly. Big emotions can trick your brain into thinking that you don't have enough air. You can start to breathe super fast, and that doesn't make you feel very good. It also makes it hard to find your peaceful spot. Yoga can help you grow your peaceful spot to make it stronger and bigger so you can handle any big emotion that shows up. Yoga is made of 3 basic things: breathing, movement, and mindset. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? All right, help me with the practice of breathing. Since it's such a big part of yoga, I want to show you how to focus and breathe slowly first. Breathe in, pretending to smell a flower. Join me. Breathe out, pretending to slowly blow a bubble. Now place your hands on your tummy and imagine your belly is a balloon. Every time you breathe in to smell a flower, the balloon gets bigger. When you breathe out to blow a bubble, the balloon gets smaller. This is called belly breathing. Mindset is another part of yoga. You can calm your mind by saying positive words or thinking positive thoughts. I am loved, I am kind, I am smart. I can do this. I can do hard things. Movement is the final step that ties it all together. When you move into a pose, it helps your mind focus. Let's try it. Step 1, breathe in to smell a flower. Breathe out to blow a bubble. Step 2, move into a pose and continue to breathe in and out. This is warrior pose. We know warrior pose. This is this one. There. It can help your back get stronger so you can stand up tall. Step 3, think positive thoughts. You'll notice yoga uses a lot of nature and animal poses. As you breathe out, you can make that animal sound to release energy too. And bring a little joy into the practice. All right, let's start easy. I can bring joy like a rainbow. We stretch to one side. Oh, and stretch to the other side. Oh. Ah. I can be wise like an owl and look at the positive side of things. We look. I know it seems silly, but it's super helpful. This is one of my favorite poses, as well as peaceful spots. It can turn into other poses. I can be still like a table. I can be carefree like a cow. Moo, we arch our back up like a cow. You can actually do this sitting too. Arch, and I can stretch like a cat. Oh, we arch our back the other way. Cat cow. Thanks, Marie. I can slow down like a snail and go down into, woof. I can be alert doing downward dog. I can be alert like a dog doing upward dog. And going back and forth. That's okay. I can balance like a tree and manage my emotions. Maybe. Some days. I can handle change like a butterfly. You see she's sitting. I can stand tall and confident like a mountain. All of this while breathing. I can shine like a star. Wow, your peaceful spots are so big and strong. I hope you will remember what you have learned today. Namaste. Smell a flower, blow a bubble, and think of me, your calm spot. Thank you, Marie. I encourage all of you, as silly as it might feel, to remember these things in the coming week as you feel your emotions start to get a little jumbly or a little intense. Take a moment to breathe. Take a moment to wiggle and move your body through your emotions. These are simple ways to move, or you can just pay attention to where the stress is in your own body and just be gentle with moving your body, letting your emotions pass through that movement.
This journal entry is dated May 11th, 2 weeks from the last one I shared. On my walk today, I stopped at the park. I had been giving myself affirmations for about 3 blocks while listening to sparkling bright ambient music. The affirmations reflected states of finding myself in a place of abundance. You are safe. You are protected. You are loved. I reached the top of the hill and basked in the warm sunlight for a minute or two, then sat in the shade at a picnic table overlooking the dog run, the empty hockey rink, the golf course fairway across the street, the breeze swaying the evergreen branches, the birds calling, the small children playing on the equipment behind me. The slow music ebbed and flowed while vehicles passed on the street. The leaf blowers roared. A few golfers hacked away at small white sphere-like objects in what I consider one of the most idiotic sports ever to gain popularity. I thought about what my eyes had experienced time and again, blades of grass drying out, dead leaves scattering in the stiff breeze. Beautiful trees being felled before their time for no other reason than some idiot decided they didn't belong there. Flowers withering in an autumn that comes with certain inevitability. I thought about the events that play out before these things happen of green and growth, much of which was happening before my eyes. And I lost the focus I had lived with for so long. For a moment, events stopped happening to and around me. I wasn't part of a system of gears, ropes, and pulleys, an unending action of this, then that, which leads to a third. Time stood still, and action turned to stillness, to simply be. A bird sang. An insect flew past my line of sight. An orange ball lay motionless on the other side of a fence. An adult pushed a child in a stroller. A bicyclist rode up and down the road. And none of the hundreds of little things had anything to do with me. They just were. I sat there motionless for probably 20 to 25 minutes before walking back to the apartment. In those moments, I felt a sense of home. It was rest, something I could only describe as detached clarity.